well as literary contributions. She's one of the major faces behind the recognition of legal rights of trans folk when the Supreme Court of India passed the Lassa judgment in 2014. She also acted in a movie as a lead, Nartaki, in 2011. We'll try and also speak a little bit about that as we go along. She's a founder of Sahodari Foundation. A lot of you may be aware of the foundation and the kind of work the foundation is doing. Primarily, the scope is to work towards the social, political, and economic empowerment of trans people in India. She has international presence in a lot of work that she's done abroad as well. She's been introduced. She's been invited by the Harvard University, the Ministry of Global Affairs, Canada, and also she has participated in conferences to present her poetry and art to special audience. Recently, one of her books has also come out, which is called "We Are Not the Others," and this is a collection of poems, essays, art, and monologue. So, welcome, Kalki, and looking forward to have a conversation with you today. Um, Abina Aher is her full name, the pronouns are she and her. And she's a former chair of Asia Pacific Transgender Network. She's also the vice president of Innovative Response for Global Transgender, which is it's also called IRGC. She's a health champion for HIV and TB as well with GPAN Asia Pacific. Probably, Abhina, when we are having a conversation around healthcare, you can help us understand a little bit more about this work. She's also working as a technical expert at iTech India right now. She has introduced the first trans-led dancing group, which is called the Dancing Queens, and established the Queen Foundation, which is the Transgender Welfare Equity and Empowerment Trust Foundation. She has worked on significant HIV programs, and she's also worked with WPATH, WHO, UNAIDS, and the Global Fund. So I think, Abhinav, we have a lot to learn in terms of what has been happening in the healthcare industry, and what is the way forward for us as well. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam.
I'll introduce Grace now. Her pronouns are also she and her. Grace is India's first transgender software engineer and a prominent trans rights activist, who's a role model for many transgender achievers. Um, she is a significant role, she has a significant voice in advocating rights for trans folks. During the pandemic, many of you who follow her would know that during the pandemic, she was fighting for the basic rights, that would come along, which were denied in a manner to speak for the trans community as well. And I think in the conversation today, we can discuss a little bit more about that. And Grace has been the pioneer in passing of court orders which are related to competitive exams. And she also advocates for the reservation for trans folks in India. So again, we're going to try and have a conversation around that today. So Grace, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Shivaji.
I'm also wondering if all of us could go on video, if that's comfortable. All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Um, all right. So starting from you, Kalki, um, since we are connecting and we're speaking on the occasion of the Day of Visibility, the primary question I wanted to ask was, do you think that the trans folks in India have visibility today? And especially in light of the fact that all of you are considered as icons and you have such large following on social media, I think it will be really nice to hear a little bit about your journey and how you made a space for yourself and created visibility. Kalki, we'll go with you first.
Okay, thank you very much. And can you tell me how much time I have
Say about
for the first
5 minutes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Um, I actually hail from a very small town in Tamil Nadu. It's called Podachi. It's very near to the Western Ghats Mountains, and it's near the Tamil Nadu Kerala border as well. So I grew up in a very working class family, elder sister and younger sister, and I studied in a school where it was full of boys, and of course, because of my gender expressions, like all other trans kids, I also had to go through a lot of hell. And at college, it was even more worse because I had to go through several sexual abuses and verbal abuses, physical abuse, and all that. This has been happening to almost all transgender people, no matter what religion or caste they are from. And I would say that between us, community people, we don't even talk about it. It's just understood, and it has been unfortunately normalized within us. But there is a lot of wound, I would say, inside every transgender woman and man. There is an unhealed wound that is full of pain and experiences about the past. So um, I would say that only for the past 15 years, there has been quite uh, a visibility for the transgender community, and it came only after the HIV/AIDS epidemic came into India, and we were one of the targeted population for sexual health projects, and we were seen. Until then, we were actually invisible. Even of course, today we are invisible in certain ways, but not like in the past 15 years. So many things have happened, and I would definitely attribute that to our state, Tamil Nadu. Even before 2015, I mean, in 2014, the Supreme Court of India legally recognized the transgender community. But in 2008, sorry, in 2007 and 8, the Transgender Welfare Board was formed in Tamil Nadu. So before me, a lot of leaders from the transgender community in Tamil Nadu have done a tremendous work. These were not people who were educated. They are actually sex workers and beggars from the community. So the movement actually started from there. It also started from Jamaat leaders. So it started from that movement from beggars and sex workers. Is that it started in India, and then it moved on to the visibility moved on to other places. Definitely, we have achieved a lot. We have achieved so many things in our social life, in our visibility and presence in our country. Uh, but I wouldn't say we have reached a height where we are treated as equals. No, that hasn't happened yet. First of all, it hasn't happened in our own families, where transgender people of every day chased out. And still, there's a lot to be done when it comes to inclusion, whether it's in school or in college or in a corporate company or in a government institution or in the media. Inclusion, there's a lot to happen and a lot to be changed. And I think we are all advocates, Abhina, Grace, and me. We're all doing our parts, our own parts, playing our own roles in changing that and being more inclusive and equal.
Thank you, Kaki. That's really helpful, and it's really also helpful to know that Tamil Nadu as a state itself was doing a lot even before the judgment, and still it seems that Tamil Nadu is doing a lot compared to, I mean, at least for cis people, and when we want to read up more as well, we see a lot more judgments, a lot more proactiveness coming from Tamil Nadu than other states. So thank you for that. That really helps. Avina, in case of your journey, and what are your views in terms of the visibility for the people?
Uh, See, actually, people like me, Kalki, are coming from the dinosaur age. Actually, technically, we had very limited amount of exposure to information. Not only us, but our parents. We struggled with what we are, and for a longest period of our lives, especially my life, I've invested on who I am, and why am I like this, and am I the only one on this earth? And I just felt that it was unfortunate that during that period of time, the only visibility which was available in the society I belong to, Maharashtra, is the references about Hijra community. When you talk about the transgender people, and the first trans person I met on who was taking on the signal, and I remember asking my mother that can I go and talk to her, and she said that no, they will take you away. Like my mother was so scared because I was extremely effeminate and I was extremely, and I think more than me, my mother faced a huge amount of stigma because of my presence of being a single child and not being living up to the mark of masculinity uh, as a boy. At that point of time. She was single mother and she was raising me. But the good part about it is that she never gave it up on me. She could have just, disowned me, but like any other parents, I mean, now also we talk about almost more than 53% of the transgender parent disown them, and that's the reason why they are into huge vulnerable position. I think that when I looked into the visibility, I looked into the multifaceted aspect, exactly taking from Kalaki. One is that, of course, the visibility that we had and we have many times was not enough. It was much more negative publicity about the gender. For us to actually break away from that and showing the positive portrayal of the community was an uphill climb task. Kalki is an amazing artist, and I in my years when before Kalki, I've not seen so many trans poets, trans artists. Though we were involved in various theatrics, dance groups, a lot of us were only used as cross-dressers or as an entertainment purpose. You look at the Bollywood representation also about the transgender people, there were hardly any positive representation about us, so we had no aspirational values to take from. I feel when people like now who are from the transgender community see Kalaki as a youth example, or through Grace, who's a young dynamic leader, I think there's a lot of aspirations that community derives. And I feel community is right now in a better position to take this positive vibes rather than negative vibes. In our case, I'm part of the Hijra community. For the first time when around 18 years back, when I decided to be part of the Hijra construct and still wanted to work 9 to 5 job. There were a lot of Hijra community members who came forward and say that is today you are choosing a full-fledged job, but tomorrow if they if they throw you out for being a trans person, we will not even allow you to stand on the sex side. We will not even allow you to beg on the streets. So it was a very difficult situation for me. The second aspect of visibility is about, I think, visibility of the parents who are part of the trans children, and their visibility and their aspirations to be what they are and to liberate and show the comfort and support to the trans kid has been always a very challenging. My mother, who came out as a proud transparent, was itself was a huge support to me. And research shows that is whenever LGBTI people's parents have shown a huge support to them, their visibility in the society has been always aspirational. They have tremendously succeeded on what they have been doing. So it's a huge thing when we talk about it. The other visibility aspect that I want to talk about it is that a portrayal of the community, how you would like to portray yourself in the community as a trans people. We have a huge amount of responsibility. And many of us, we don't have any social life. I'm sure Kalki and Grace will agree to
Yeah,
me
of
that,
course.
many times we have to respond to people calling us right in the night, asking for help. We are investing our own hard-earned money for the community support. All those things are happening, and uh, we don't see visible allies for the transgender community. Still, despite of the Supreme Court acknowledging transgender people as third gender in 2014, or the government is coming up with the act, the kind of a movement that was supposed to be built around the trans right and trans visibility is yet to be achieved. I feel because I personally feel that policies don't change the mindset of people. What changed is the perception of the people is the positive role modeling. And right now, despite transgender people have not received enough opportunity, there are so many transgender people who have become amazing artists like Kalaki, people who have become principals, doctors, all fields, police officers, and we have been receiving Padma Shri awards for last 2 years. Last year Natraki Natraj, this year Majamma. You never know next time Grace or quality or name also received. What I'm trying to say to you is that we are pushing our envelope, we are pushing our boundaries, but the kind of support for what we require at this point of time to make this happen quickly is sometimes we lack with it. We lack with resources, we lack with commitment from the people, and we lack with a common vision from within the community itself. So there are a lot of dispersed visions that community have. Some people agree to something, some people agree to something, and we're not been able to reach out to the common consensus towards bringing more visibility for the transgender community. For me, I think I've been very fortunate in my life, whatever small struggles that I have had. But the amount of stories, Shivangi, I've heard from the transgender communities, every time I heard a new story, my story started shrinking. And I started thinking that how blessed I was to be fortunate to be living despite of all the struggles and problems that I've gone through. So for me, visibility does has a lot of work in the communities to sort of kind of articulate that our freedom is not easy. Our freedom has sacrificed several lives, and we are acknowledging that, and we are cognizant about that. That today the free space, free air that we are breathing, a lot of our trans sisters and trans brothers have died because of that.
Yes.
To give us that space. And today, during the Visibility Day, I also want to acknowledge that, and I also want to thank all of them uh, who have been tirelessly working uh, for the community visibility. Thank you, Suman.
Very well said. I'm just at a loss of words right now because there are so many things that you have pointed out, especially the lack of allies, family support, and especially trans parents who want to take care of their children, but at the same time, society as a whole, the entire community doesn't let them. So there are these are such important points, and they need so much more discussion. So thank you, Abhinav, for bringing in this perspective. Grace, I also wanted to ask you about your experience and what do you think about the entire visibility angle, and also probably from the pandemic perspective, if you could throw some light.
So thank you, Sivangi. So I'm so happy to participate in that. And yes, my friends, they talked about everything like how the visibility space and how do we create this kind of visibility space. You know, when as Avinash said, that 18 years before, 20 years before, uh, so we don't have a visibility space. That time we face so much of discrimination and so much of violence and so much of abuses, but still that abuses and violence are continuing. Now, whatever the visibility, when we, and specifically, I will talk about the DBA community, that is within Adivasi community and the tribal community trans. We don't have a safe space to show our visibility, so to show our identity. We don't have a safe visibility space. Like, in the sense, in Tamil Nadu, we have the trans visibility space that we talk about, I think you are all care about the Goa festival. So, uh, so many years before, uh, that that Kumagam festival only to all the trans people having the chance to show their identity, to show their visibilities, that safe space. But in that space also, they are all face so much of discrimination, so much of violence, so much of sexual abuse, and so much of hate speech. The things happen. But in that space, through that space, the people, the community people are raising their voice, raising their demands, raising their rights. So in India, particularly DBA community trans, um, still we don't have a safe space. Still we are facing, in the name of caste discrimination and the gender-based discrimination. We don't have a safe space within our family circle. As Abhinav said, all the family should be accept, but here the family acceptance, we need to change the society acceptance. When the society and the government give the rights for the trans people, and the society create a safe and secure environment for the trans people, after that only the parents, the family, they will automatically accept the trans people. But here, all the families and the specifically rural area families, so they don't have any awareness about, they don't have any awareness about the trans people, and they don't know how to handle this kind of issues. And 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 that's not their fault because of who teach we are all ashamed and we are all you know uh, uh, we are all facing how do you say, we don't have any kind of rights and we don't, yeah, we don't have any safe space. So this all the things having so much of fear to the families, specifically trans families. So that's why they denied. So that's why they are not ready to accept. But here, now, as Kalki said, the society slowly changed. But they are, they're all focusing on welfare schemes for the trans people. But nobody didn't focus on rights for the trans people. Because when we talk about the rights, education rights, employment rights, the reservation rights, and so and the my protection rights, here we don't have. So the visibility and the safe space is super difficulty for DBA community trans. And when the pandemic time, we face so much of discrimination, and we like the Kalki and Abhinaya and so many individual persons and so many organizations. Our community organization only protect our community people, but no, the cisgender community and the cisgender people, they're not ready to support the trans people issues because when we talk about the healthcare, it's super difficult so caste system and the transphobia, it's happened everywhere. That's why I filed the prayer in the Madras High Court. We need separate vaccination and we need how do we react vaccination with our body. So that clarification we need, and the COVID relief fund also we asked those to the government because government asked the document when we are dying in the name of pandemic, in the name of COVID. That time they asked so many documents to give the relief, relief fund. So yeah, so it's super difficult. So slowly the society will change. They are ready to accept the trans people as a human, but they are not ready to give the trans people rights.
Thank you for that, Grace. And do you think that the law has helped in any manner?
Yeah, because of the law, we have a constitution. So through the constitution only we are fighting a lot. So we are, so many trans person are getting our rights, like employment opportunities, education opportunities. So without the constitution, it's not possible. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Also, since all of you raised this particular point about the way in which the representation happens, I wanted to ask this question about the representation in media, and again moving to you, Kalki, and also especially as an actor and being a lead as well. When you look at movies that are coming out now, say Gangubai or Chandigarh Kare Ashki, what are your thoughts about the representation in movies?
I think when we talk about film representation, then we have to come the decade by decade how there has been portrayal and transition and all that. It's so nice to see films like Chandigarh Kariya Ashiki and lots of other films, um, many Tamil films and Malayalam films and all language films. We have now stories of transgender people, at least as a supporting character and all that. The misrepresentation somehow has actually stopped in a way, I would say. Uh, but first of all, what the film has done, Indian film, whether it's Bollywood, Bollywood, Collywood or you know Mollywood or Sandalwood or whatever, all these film industries in India, they have again and again and again, their narratives about transgender people were all misrepresentations and wrong. They have used transgender people for comical relief, especially to show us as sexual perverts and people without any intelligence and intellect, and for making people laugh and squirm and cringe and all that. That's how we have been used for many years. And these were all done by not just any guys, but also by some of the most famous filmmakers of India have also done this stupidity and misrepresentation, which has truly damaged our presence in the society. Because I believe that film is a powerful medium. I remember once when I went with film with my family, and there was this group of transgender people in the film who were sex workers, and they ran behind the man to rape him, and the audience were laughing. And see, I'm sitting with my parents and watching, and what would they think? You know, all this nonsense were actually projected through films to make people laugh. And the tragedy is that the transgender community itself was used to laugh at ourselves. That is the most, I would say, that is the extreme exploitativeness of our Indian film industry. And from moving on that, we have been fighting through media, through our social media, and also through the mainstream media about the wrong representation of girls. And we have been doing it for the past, again, for more than 10, 15 years, we have been doing it. And slowly and steadily, these narratives have changed. Right from Tamil films in 2010, I did a full biographical film of a transgender girl uh, called Kalki in the film also, but it's not my story anyway. And this movie was a full representation of what happens to a transgender person who is thrown out of their home and what happens to them when they join with our trans community, and how the trans community is suffering in the society, and how she runs away. She's always running away and being cheated and exploited by people. But yet she stands up on her own as a woman, as a trans woman. And that was the story. And these kind of real life projections, real life narratives are very rare, very rare. I would say the change came in India after like films like Tamanna, films like Dharia Tamanna in Hindi, and also films like Bombay from Maniratnam. Maniratnam was one of the first Indian directors who represented the trans community in a very dignified way in the film Bombay. And since then, I think slowly there have been characters in the trans, I mean, in the Indian film industry, almost in all industry, about showing trans women, transgender people, the characters and all that. Sometimes transgender people are used to act, but I would say that there's a long way to go. Why? Because if there is a plumpy role, for example, Chandigarh Kare Ashiki, or in Gangubai, a mainstream actor is cast instead of a transgender person being cast. That is really bad. That is unacceptable. I'm very happy that we are shown in a very positive way in the films. But at the same time, we lack opportunities in the Indian film industry. The Indian film industry has done decades of injustice to our community, and they have to compensate by casting trans actors. And not only that, even when there is a film or a movie made about a transgender person, then our community people have to be the consultants, the writers, the script writers of the film, and definitely be included in the making of the film. But these things are not done, you know. Um, in a way, I would say that this is also, in a way, exploitation of the creamy kind. But I would definitely insist that in transgender people should be cast for transgender characters. For example, if you look at Orange is the New Black, the web series, or if you look at the latest one, Inventing Anna, in which both the series 11 Hawks is there, and in Transparent, a lot of other things. Transgender people act. We are talented. We deserve to be cast, and it's high time Indian film industry represents transgender people uh, and not misrepresents about our lives, about our us, and also offers more opportunities for our community. And but above all that, I would say that we have to be the creators. We have to be the directors. We have to be the actors. We have to be the producers. So we don't wait for people to make films about us. We make the films about us. And that is what is a true empowerment. And I think it will take some years, but definitely we will march towards that. Hope we have a lot of money and power in the future to make films and scripts on our own life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. To end it on that positive note, and hoping that not just the community but also the cis folk realize this and ensure that the, the entire space of media becomes more inclusive, so that the right kind of perspectives also come out. So
Obviously.
thank you for that. Kathy. But also, do you think that I remember reading about Nartaki that it came out in 2011. At that time, it
Yes.
was um, pretty, but at the same time, it was not very it wasn't a blockbuster. Do you think that it came out right now, maybe say in the year 2022? Do you think things would, I mean, it would be looked at differently?
Nothing was a movie that was actually, it was too much for that time in 2000. Probably if it was made now, it would have gotten a lot of visibility and definitely awards. I think during the release of the film, the Tamil film industry was actually occupied by too many conglomerates of political connections, and we lost the whole. But still, uh, the movie was not a loss, and also it ran in almost like 75 to 100 theaters in Tamil Nadu and also in Singapore and Malaysia and elsewhere the movie was screened. So it was a bold attempt, and the producer was a woman, the director was a woman, and all people cast in transgender characters were actually transgender people. And even our voices, redubbed. We did not allow, or we did not actually use. Uh, we actually requested the producer and the director that our voices should be used. So we dubbed for our own voices. It was a spectacular experience for all of us, and I would proudly say that, and also regretfully say that after that, not many films were made like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Kaki. On that note, also moving to you, Abhinav, and the song to Rebina, and since we're talking about representation and adequate representation, I was wondering if you could throw some light on, how this came about, and you know, uh, it seems like a beautiful song. Everyone at Watch It when we watched it, and we all completely loved it. And in fact, any programs that we are wanting to do, we are also wanting to showcase some part of it. In fact, we are doing a program tomorrow, and we are wanting to show that video as well to anybody and everybody who's going to join us. So, can you just help us understand a little bit more about this?
Thank you. Shivangi, art has been always very close to my heart. That's why actually the quality stays inside my heart. I follow very closely
Oh,
about
so
her work.
sweet of you.
And whenever I decided in my life, I always thought art has to be used to talk about our issues eloquently. Because if you did just go in a theatrical manner, maybe sometimes people don't listen to us. And art is something that neutralizes all the people. It just brings people without their biases to positions where people can hear. So I've always used art. Like for example, my mother is a dancer and my father was an instrument player. So I learned dancing from my mother, but without her knowledge, because she never taught me. She was a classical dancer, but she never taught me because she thought that the moment I will learn dancing, I will I will become more feminine. But I just learned dancing looking at her. behind her back. She had no clue when I actually made a first stage performance at the age of 18. She was awestruck and she walked away from the performance because she said, "Who taught you this dance?" And I said, "You taught me." So it's very interesting thing because my quest that I really wanted to learn dancing. So art and culture has been very very close to my heart. And when actually I established two things. One is of course when I was operating as a sex worker, I saw sex work and trans women who have been deprived, having a lot of issues, substance abuse, um, torture, gender-based violence, very, very closely. And these women were actually without any family support. They were surviving on daily basis. So today, if they earn, they eat. They don't earn, they don't eat. That was a critical situations, and there was a lot of suicidal tendency among these women that they wanted to finish their life. Like they knew that they were hazard, that they knew that they are doing little excessive drinking, but they just wanted to finish it off. And quite often I used to ask them that you don't feel like living, and they used to say that I want to finish this life because this is a curse for me. I cannot handle this anymore. Uh, and I when so I started talking to them from the language of dance and music because I wanted to bring them together. And I started teaching them Bollywood dancing, whatever I learned, these women started connecting to each other. It was like a missing dot which is coming together. And then they established a relationship among them. While they were performing, they were forgetting about their sorrows, they were not crying. For the first time, when these trans people actually performing in front of almost a huge audience, they started crying after the performance because they've never got this kind of a respect ever in their life, that the audience was standing on the chairs and they were voting for them, they were clapping, they were appreciating. And the only feeling that they never had was being loved. And that was the first feeling that they received at that point of time because they were always being tortured. And so Tore Bina, when I started with Tweet Foundation, I established the first ever trans men and trans women organization together because I thought that is, even as trans women, we were not doing enough to visualize the trans men issues, and they were marginalized. So when I thought of doing that, I always kept art and culture as a very strong pillar into that work. And when I met Neeraj, who is founder member of Visual Pro, Lotus Visual Production, and he is London-based person, and he was doing a lot of work with Kashish Film Festival. And when he came to me and when he started talking about, I made him visit to all our shelter homes. I made him talk to almost 50 trans people, trans men and trans women. And then we sat on a table. I said, now we talk. We don't want to sort of work with somebody who's not sensitized on the trans issues. And then we started talking, and Arunanch, who is the director and the story writer of the film, he came forward and he had some stories. And in that story, he was talking about that, oh, some transgender people take some trans child and the family feels sorrow. And I said, no, that's not the story that we want to tell to this world. The story that we want to tell to this world is, given an opportunity, trans people can really flourish themselves. Given an opportunity, even if you're not having mother and father, there is a support system which is available in the trans community that helps you to empower. And that's how Torelina came. And a friend of mine, Shalvali Polgade, who is a very well-known Bollywood singer, who has sung Balam Pichkari and other songs also. She agreed to give her voice, to lend her voice to the song because she had visited our shelter home and she knew about the trans issues. And she was absolutely in tears when she was singing the song because she could feel the pain of the transgender people. And then there was a part in the song which is a rap, and we decided that rap has to be done by the transgender first. And it's unfortunate we couldn't get anybody from India, so we had to actually contact Asifa from London, who is from the LGBTI community. She's a rapper, and she has given her voice to that. So Torevina, even in the production, the people who are called as runners, who use for a production support, they were transgender. The transgender people were involved in everywhere. The transgender people represent the transgender characters. It's unfortunate we couldn't get a gender variant child for the shoot, but we were so determined that we also wanted to use a gender deviant child to be portrayed to the small girl, that we couldn't get it. But the rest of the things, and this is something which will continue with the work that I will do forever for sure, 100%, is that I will keep the trans narrative will be told by trans people, and trans communities will play trans characters. I'm more ambitious. Probably someday trans people will portray us as characters also. You never know. So I don't mind to have a hero who's a trans man in any sort of Bollywood, Tollywood, any film. I don't care. But we probably could do that also. But I just feel that is more such subjects and stories must come out, and I think as a community member, we have a huge responsibility to work towards that. And I think we need to have more resources. We need to have more production houses, which should come forward to support this kind of narrative that should come into the public. And it doesn't matter whether it's successful or not. What matters is that whether it reaches to people, uh, who have a wrong connotations about the transgender people. They've only seen transgender people creating nuisance. And I think that narrative has changed. Today, we are into the country where Chaiwala has become a prime minister. That day is not so far when some trans person will be also sitting as a prime minister and president of this country. And watch me out, in 5 years that may be possible as well.
Thank you for that, Abhin. And I'm also wondering between Ajit, Devesh, and one of you could put the link on the social media platforms as well. So, for anyone who has joined us, and if you want to have a look at it, you can have a look at it. It's a YouTube link, right? And what I understand, Abhinay, is that all the proceeds are going to, I mean, from whatever streaming that happens, the proceeds are going to help the trans community.
If you like this video as much as possible, share it with your friends and supporters. The more likes the video gets, we get some amount of resources for the trans work that we are doing right now. So rather than raising direct funding, we have decided this is a good opportunity for us to actually reach the people and ask them to contribute to our work.
Thank you, Abhinay. Grace, wanting to bring you in here that, when usually people hear the word trans, as Abhinay was also, stating earlier, before we formally started the conversation, that, everybody tends to look at it as a straight line, and we forget to look at the intersectionality. So I'm wondering if you could bring in some perspective over there in terms of how within the community as well, different, say, religion, the caste, all of these things, different aspects of a person's life also plays a role.
Um, yes. So as you said, all the people when we talk about the LGBTQI or trans, we are seeing straight line. All the people are sexual minority, that's it. And the intersectional people, they are not ready to focus and because because of their privilege, because the people who are coming from the caste privilege and the class privilege, the the LGBTQ movement or the trans movement, all the people are within the queer movement, the LGBTQI movement and the trans movement, caste is there. So many people are, the people who are having caste privilege and the class privilege, those people are saying, we don't have a religion, we don't have any caste different, and we don't have anything. But it's not. The people who are all coming from the that all that is their privilege. So to talk about we don't have anything, we don't have a blah 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 this, but within the queer movement, within the LGBTQI movement, is there, caste is there. We are facing caste discrimination within our own community, and we are facing caste discrimination in the civil society. For this we have so many incidents we explained to the society, and recently, Dalit trans woman who was from the southern part of Tamil Nadu and who was brutally attacked by her boyfriend's family, her partner's family, and in the name of caste and gender, and her boyfriend mother urinated on her face, and they brutally attack, and they shout their caste slur, they use their caste slur, and still now, the civil society, and we approach the district collector and the superintendent of police, they're not filing SC Atrocity Act. But after we shout these issues and we put so many social media campaign, and now yesterday only, day before yesterday only, they altered the FIR, and they put the SC Atrocity Act, but they not put the Transgender Protection Act. So the violence and atrocities happen in the name of caste and gender, but we are not focusing on that. And the person with the disability, so within the queer movement, the intersectionality issues are there, but uh, the here we don't have our representative people. The people who are having privilege again and again, those people are representing their voice. Like we are talking about the trans issues, we are talking about all the kind of issues, but they are not talking about the intersectional issues. But because when we compare with the GBA community trans, all the other people are allies. So allies are, the allied people doesn't know about, they knew about the caste issues, but they are not focusing on that. They are thinking, it's not a big issue, but we are facing. And when we go to the reservations, specifically the people who are trying to get a government examination or government job here in India, we are following two kind of reservation. One is vertical reservation, another one is horizontal reservation. So when we talk about the vertical reservation is like a male, female, transgender, or other gender category. That's it. The gender-based reservation. And when we talk about the horizontal reservation, so within the male category, so within their caste name, within their caste and caste based reservation, gender and the caste based reservation. So we are so many years we are demanding we need horizontal reservation for the trans people, but in India obviously in this government, they are trying to put all the trans people in the OBC category. As per NASA versus Union of India judgment, they now it says only socially, economically, educationally backward we should consider. That's it. But the government decided to to put all the trans people in the OBC category. But here, we are all not all the trans people in the OBC, because within the trans community, the DB trans people are there, and how do we access the OBC category reservation? And it's not social justice; it's completely injustice for us. So, and why we are asking the reservation rights? So, reservation is rights. It's not for the only DBA community trans people. It's for all the community trans people to access the public space, to access the employment opportunity, to access the educational opportunity. So many people are denied. So in Tamil Nadu, for example, in Tamil Nadu, uh, every year so many trans people are trying to, they are writing an examination, but their application automatically denied because we don't have a separate examination. And this the government or these people are considering within the cis people, we have to compete with the cis people. And how it's going to social justice. It's not at all social justice. So we need to compete within our own community, and within our own community, all the community trans people should be participate in the public space, and they all have the rights to participate. For example, in the national council. National Council for the Trans, it's all upper caste, upper class, Savarna people. But no, where are our community represented? So, compared with the DBA community, all other people are allies. And allies, it's not, they're not well known our issues. They're not known of our issues particularly because when we talk about our issues within our own community, we are having so much of experience, so much of pain. Every day, every day we are fighting with the casteism, we are fighting with the transphobia. Yes, obviously all the trans people are fighting with the transphobia, but particularly DBA community, tribal community trans people, we are fighting it. So many discrimination. So it's super difficult being a DBA community, trans, the LGBTQI person to live in this civil society because we don't have a strong protection act.
Thank you for that, Grace. And I'm also wondering, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Karnataka and Tamil Nadu have made some
Yes, yes. So
reservations.
the Karnataka government, the High Court, as per the Karnataka government, the High Court judgment, 1% reservation they allowed in the education system. And recently, 2 weeks before, Bihar government also, Bihar High Court also passed the order to implement the 1% horizontal reservation in the education and employment. But not all other states they don't. But particularly in Tamil Nadu, they're not doing anything. But we are trying to push.
All right, thank you for that. Given that we are on the almost the last couple of minutes, I just want to quickly invite you and Abhinav to give us a little bit of brief of healthcare and how it's going, and also the fact that Peace Foundation is running the government fair for in Mumbai. So maybe just a little bit on both these aspects if you could touch upon. Um, Sanjana, just give me 2 minutes. I'll come to you as well.
Is this for
Yes, Sabina, your voice is cracking.
Yeah, sorry. I have just come out of my office. It just got set up. So,
I think we're still losing you.
uh, support people there. You need to try people of the transition. Particularly, there are complexities about it. Instance, hormone treatment and various other.
I mean, I'm so sorry. I think we're losing you quite a bit. I'm sorry, is that my network? Can somebody please confirm?
He can't hear.
Okay. Okay. So in the meantime, then, Karki, I'm wondering if probably I can pose a question to you while Abhinav joins back. That you do mentor a lot of trans folks as well, right? And what are some of the challenges you see there in terms of uh, how have you been able to mentor them, and also what are the kind of things you think that an ally, or say if if once they're mentored and they have to join a workforce, then in terms of allies, what is it that the organization people, in the sense of managers, employees, I mean, what are some of the things that they should be keeping in mind as well? So both aspects of the balance.
Do you want me to start first? Speak
Yes,
first
yes,
on that?
yes, that's for you. Yes.
Okay, great. Firstly, a lot of people from the trans community, mostly young transgender persons, call me for support, help, and counseling. The first and the foremost problem I hear from them is from their own home. How do I come out to my home? If I come out, my parents will not accept me, but I'm ready to walk away from my home, but I don't have a support system. Where do I go? Uh, and there are two kinds of people. Some of them call me for transition and surgery, and some of them call me for getting a new job. Uh, it's like that. They want to live separately, so they need space, they need a new job and all that, so that they can join in a job, earn money, then transition according to their own wish. But mostly The questions are like, how do I manage my family with my transition? This is what is the most important question that usually they ask me. So I always tell them the first thing that they should actually do is continue their studies no matter what happens in your family. Just continue your studies. Try to get outside support from your friends and family or extended family and try to get support, but never discontinue education. Never discontinue your degree or schooling or your post graduation, because I think for transgender people, education is our tool to empower and empowerment. So I always encourage them to continue to study. The second thing is, I counsel them about some of the most positive environment that we have, enabling environment that we have created for transgender community here, and the role models and all that. So basically, the most important thing is to provide them the confidence, the hope to face the world, even if their parents are rejecting when they're choosing to come out. I try to get them support through my friends for a short term only. I can't do it for a long time. I don't have the resources. Also, in our project, we don't have the money to do it as well to support a person for long extended hours. We either recommend it to a good transgender women to stay in their homes and then move on within a couple of weeks in a job and all that and find their own way. And these are some of the challenges that I face with young trans persons. But when it comes to work, a lot of community people also wanted to join in jobs. And of course, there are companies, there are small organizations and big organizations and corporates which are actually trying to open their doors for the trans community. But mostly, I would say this is all very few. Out of the 100 companies that are hearing and telling that they're open about LGBTQI and wanting are ready to recruit transgender people, mostly it's during the Pride Month that these companies actually announce it and hold uh, Pride Month events and all that. So it's called pink washing. And mostly all these corporate companies do pink washing on those days and those months and all that. Otherwise, they don't care. They don't care about recruiting trans people or giving them training, provide them opportunities and all that. In spite of the huge infrastructure that they have, they expect transgender persons to be ready to work, which is impossible. I I say, I mean, we have been one of the most marginalized and with least opportunities. And first of all, to work in a company, the company has to be ready. The employees have to be sensitized, right from the CEO to the peon in the company. Everybody has to be sensitized about the trans and LGBTQI issues, and they have to be trans friendly, homo friendly, and all that. Only then a transgender person can work in a company without any prejudice and any harassment. So that kind of sensitization is not still happening in majority of the corporates in India. Before even hiring a transgender person, the most important thing is to create an enabling environment where trans people can work freely, happily, equally, without fear. That kind of a change has to happen internally first. And that can happen only when people like us are invited to speak, to provide workshops, to sensitize, to bring awareness, to talk to the employees and all that. That is not happening, you see. They're ready to offer jobs, but then trans people can join and they suffer. And this is what is happening. This has to change.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think as they say, even when it comes to the employment of women, that there are a lot of these diversity and inclusion measures that can be taken, but at the same time, one has to be prepared first. I think there's a lot of work that needs to happen before the actual hiring and recruitment takes place. So, thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you for that. Abhinav, I'm wondering if you've been able to join us back.
Yeah, I'm here, but my network keeps breaking, so I can hear.
It is breaking, yes, it is breaking. Okay, so I think since we are at 6 o'clock as well, I think I'm going to then probably conclude this conversation. And Abhinav, this gives us reason for us to probably trouble you again, since some of the conversation has got left out. So we'll try and connect with you again. But I think 1 hour is really not a justifiable amount of time to really discuss so many aspects of this the particular lives that we are seeing around us right now. So I think it's really insufficient, and I don't feel very satisfied. Having to speak to you only for such a limited amount of time. But I think in this as well, there were a few moments that literally gave me chills, especially when we spoke about uh, somebody feeling like it's a curse and wanting to end their life, or somebody being ruminated on. I think these are some extremes that nobody as a human being should ever have to go through. So I'm hoping that we are able to keep the conversation going. And thank you so much for joining us and starting the discussion for us at least at Wash It Work around the International Day of Disability. So thank you so much. I'm just wondering if there are any questions at all. There is one question. Oh no, actually there isn't a question. Sorry, there isn't a question. Thank you so much everyone for joining us as well. Thanks a lot. Have a very good evening and a great weekend. Thank you.
Zla has raised her.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for Shetwa for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Santi. Thank you, everybody. Lots of love.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.